Hi everyone, it's me, Tim. Today I want to talk about industry pendulum swings. Now, what do I mean by that? I'm not talking about trends. I'm not talking about people going, hey, action RPGs are so hot right now. But I'm also not talking about repeated predictions like I'm told like every 5 to 7 years that PC gaming is dying again. And it's not. What I'm talking about is over the last 4.5 decades, I've watched things come into the industry and go out of the industry and then come back into the industry. And it's odd to watch these things. And it's not just game features, it's production, way the production's done, the way the whole industry is run. So I'm going to talk about some of those because I kind of want to put some stuff in context so you guys can see that whenever something starts happening in the industry, you have to realize it's happened before and it's going to happen again because these things just go in and out and in and out and in and out. So let me start with one that I first noticed 30 years ago. It happened in the 90s and I've been seeing it ever since. Big companies that publish and develop in-house will suddenly decide they don't want developers in-house. There are all these developers that are out of house that seem to be able to do it cheaper. Once they look at how much it costs to keep full art staff and design staff and programming staff in-house, they kind of freak out and they're like, oh no, let's get rid of all these people and we'll do all of our development out of house. So they end up, doing contracts with small developers, getting them to do the games. But then after a few years, they're like, why are we paying these people so much money when we could just bring them all in and do it ourselves? And they pull it all back in. I watched this cycle happen at like Disney several times. And I've seen other publishers in the industry do it. And it's a weird thing to watch because it corresponds to another cycle I see. And those two don't link up. And the other cycle is I've watched companies decide to outsource parts of the game rather than have all of it done in-house. It's called, outsourcing. It's done a lot with art, but I've seen it also done with code. I've even occasionally seen design and testing outsourced. And the idea here is you have a company, whether it's a publisher or developer or a hybrid, they start looking at some of their teams and going, why are we keeping all these people on salary all the time when it goes in bursts? Like when you first start a game, you need a lot of concept artists. And then once you have the concept in place, you need a lot of, 3D artists and riggers and modelers and texture artists. But then towards the end of the game, when you're debugging it, a lot of those artists don't have much to do anymore. It's hard to have enough for the entire team. And if you're not staggering your game development so that another game starts development early enough that you can cross those cycles together, you end up with a number of people just sitting around going, I don't have a lot to do this week. So they're like, well, let's just outsource a lot of that stuff so we don't have these big cycles. But then after they do that for a few years, they realize that A, outsourcing can be expensive, and B, it's really hard to manage. You need to have people on staff that do nothing but manage these outsourced companies. Either look at their, make sure they're keeping up with the milestones in the contract. That would be a producer. To make sure what they're sending in is good, which means you need to take a programmer down or an artist down or a designer down to review their work. So I've seen outsourcing versus in-house stuff come into vogue, go away, come in, go away. And it seems to correspond to another cycle I'm seeing, which I kind of view as some lessons you just have to learn. You can't be told. And that's the pendulum of let's hire only experienced people versus we need a lot of new blood in here. And the way I see that go back and forth is I see companies that have a lot of experienced people on staff. And eventually someone goes, wow, these people are expensive. We need to start hiring more juniors. And so they do that. And they usually couch it as, oh, we're going to get new blood in here and new ideas. And these people will come in and shake things up. They shake things up all right. Some of them have great ideas. Some of them have ideas that have known pitfalls. But because they've never done it before, they're inexperienced by the very nature of you're hiring junior people who've never done it before. They fall right back into the old pitfalls. And they don't listen because they're like, oh, you're the experienced old guard. You guys don't know. You don't want to do any risk. Well, occasionally they pay off, but more often you fall right into the pitfall that you said was there, and then you spend a lot of money getting out of it. And so that eventually, I see big companies going, why are we hiring all these inexperienced people? We need more experienced people. Open senior roles, and it just goes back and forth and back and forth. And I don't even know if that can be fixed. It just seems to be something that every 5 or 10 years, companies seem to learn this lesson of, we have too many inexperienced people. We have too many experienced people. A similar thing is small teams versus big teams. You've seen a lot of companies are like, no, we're going to get a small team. It's going to be nimble. They're going to put this game together really quickly, and they're not going to be sluggish and hard to steer like a big team. And then, of course, they make a design that can't be done by a small team. Like, we need a big team. We need to compete with all these other AAA, quadruple A, quintuple A, I've even heard mentioned. We need a big team. We need 500 people. We need 1,000 people. We need 2,000 people. That exists out there. There are teams that big. But of course, sometimes it goes back. We're spending too much money. We need small, nimble teams again. And it goes back to like 10-person pre-production teams and maybe a 50 to 100-person full-size team. And it goes back and forth and back and forth. Small team, big team, small team, big team. A similar thing I've watched that I have no input on why, because I'm not an artist, is I watch the pendulum swing back and forth between photorealistic art and stylized art. And this seemed to happen when we first got really good, high resolution, pretty good color depth 3D cards out there. People wanted photorealistic games because they looked different. But they also, that's where you fall into the uncanny valley faces and people who just don't want that. And also they age badly because a higher resolution, more color, just a lot of more techniques come out, better lighting and all that come out. And suddenly the old photorealistic games don't look very good. While the stylized ones that are either, 8-bit or cartoony or cell shaded or something like that, suddenly those games still look good after 10 years. So the pendulum swings back. Let's do stylized games. And they do that for a while, and the graphics fidelity goes up, and people are like, why aren't we doing more photorealistic? And the pendulum goes back. And I just watch this go back and forth because I have no opinion. I don't have any dog in this hunt. I like some photorealistic games. I like me a lot of stylized games, and I just think that's how things go. Another thing that's come in and out a lot is VR, virtual reality. I've watched VR go in and be the new hotness and then go out because nobody wants it, and then come in as the new hotness and then go out because nobody wants it, and then come in because there's a really awesome VR game that everybody has to play, and then go out when people realize how exhausting VR can be. This has happened so many times. Back at the Nintendo Virtual Boy, and then how many VR helmets have come out, the Oculus, although they call it something different now, and I don't care. You don't need to leave a comment. I don't care what they call it. Apple threw its hat in the ring and then said, oops, I think we made a mistake. I don't think VR is going away. I don't think it's a trend because it's been happening. It's been trending for 3 decades now, and it's going to keep penduluming. It's like it's the new thing. No, it's not. It's new. It's not. It's new. And then there's a whole bunch of other things that I just want to touch on that I've seen go in and out. MMOs have gone in and out. They were the new hotness and everybody wanted one, and then they kind of phased out, and then they came back in again because people are like, I like being online with my friends. Live service is very similar. I mean, it used to just be called subscription models, and then it was, nope, everything's online, and you get content sent to you, and bug patches are, in real time, and live service is the way to be. And I don't think it's ever going to go away, but it certainly seems to be penduluming for and against, at least in terms of gamer popularity. Cloud streaming is another one. I'm not talking about cloud save games. I'm talking about actually playing a game without having the game downloaded on your machine. And you may think, well, no, this is pretty recent. No, I saw a really good demo of cloud streaming like 15 years ago, maybe even closer to 20. And it was really cool, but it's always going to have the lag. They try to do like input prediction and things like that to try to make it seem like the game isn't being adjudicated by a server that may be 100 miles away from you, or more. So I see cloud streaming become popular, and then it doesn't work for a lot of games, and it goes away, and then it becomes popular again as they take CD drives and even internal drives off of consoles, and it comes back, and it just seems to be coming and going and coming and going. Similarly, I saw a device, a peripheral for adding smell to games back in the mid 90s. I forget what it was called. It was a device that you plug into your computer, and then your game can issue a command to it to emit an odor. Let that sink in. Your games could smell a certain way. And I don't know about you, but I don't want my games to smell a certain way. I don't even want a scratch and sniff card. There's just a lot of things that I see and hear, and I don't need to smell them. And yet, it doesn't go away. That device went away, and then it came back a few years later, the same company. And then it went away, and I'm hearing it's coming back again. Same thing with like haptic gloves or even haptic suits. I don't need to feel myself getting stabbed. Haptic gloves, I don't even want to think about what applications people are going to make for that. And then, of course, that leaves the fifth sense, which is taste. I don't want scratch and lick cards. I don't want a game to be playing and it says pull out card 7 and lick it. I don't want that. But I'm not saying this is Pendulum or even trended in once, but it's the last sense I haven't seen people tackle yet. So let me wrap up because this was just supposed to... It isn't a fun Friday. It's my kind of like industry pontificating Wednesday. But I'm not talking about trends here. Watch trends. Trends are important. They can become even like the dominant thing if they trend in and stay. I'm talking about pendulum swings. I'm talking about things that come and go and come and go. Don't be fooled into thinking they're trends or that they're even the dominant thing. Usually, you're being told that by some company that's trying to sell you something. You can look for trends, but just be aware pendulum swings come and go.